Hello, my name is Veronica Rodriguez. In this presentation, I will analyze how Community Unit School District 300, which is located in West Dundee, Illinois, identifies and supports students with disabilities through child find procedures, the multi-tiered system of supports, special education evaluation, and individualized education program development. These procedures are guided by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA. IDEA requires school districts to identify students with disabilities and provide them with appropriate educational services. In this presentation, I will explain how Child Find helps identify students who may need support, how MTSS provides early interventions, how evaluation and eligibility decisions are made, and how individualized education programs are developed to support students' learning. First of all, I will briefly describe the child find process and explain how schools identify students who may have disabilities. Next, I will discuss the multi-tiered systems of supports, which provides different levels of academic and behavioral interventions before special education referral. I will then explain how special education evaluations are conducted and how eligibility decisions are made. Finally, I will discuss IEP development, family involvement, and recommendations for strengthening the systems. Child Find is a legal requirement under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It requires school districts to actively identify, locate, and evaluate students who may have disabilities and may need special education services. District 300 implements Child Find through several methods, including universal academic screening, teacher referrals, parent referrals, and behavioral monitoring systems. These processes help ensure that students who may be experiencing learning or developmental challenges are identified early. Early identification is important because students who receive timely interventions are more likely to improve academically and developmentally. Schools must actively search for students with disabilities rather than waiting until a student fails academically before providing support. That's from Turnbull 2020. District 300 uses the multi-tiered systems of supports, often called MTSS, to provide early academic and behavioral supports to students. MTSS is organized into 3 levels or tiers. Tier 1 represents high-quality core classroom instruction provided to all students. Teachers monitor students' progress and use differentiation to support diverse learners. Tier 2 provides targeted small group interventions for students who need additional support beyond the general classroom instruction. Tier 3 provides intensive, individualized interventions for students who demonstrate significant learning needs. Research shows that response to intervention models like MTSS helps schools identify learning difficulties earlier and provide supports before formal special education referrals become necessary. This is from RTI Action Network. Special education evaluation. If a student does not respond to interventions within the MTSS framework, the school may initiate a formal special education evaluation. IDEA requires that schools obtain parental consent before conducting an evaluation. The evaluation is conducted by a multidisciplinary team which may include general education teachers, special education teachers, school psychologists, and other specialists. The evaluation process may include reviewing academic performance data, conducting behavioral observations, and administering cognitive and developmental assessments. These comprehensive evaluations help determine whether a student has a disability and what educational supports may be required. Frey, 2019. Eligibility determination. After the evaluation is completed, the team meets to determine whether the student qualifies for special education services. Eligibility decisions are based on several important factors. First, the team reviews the evaluation results to determine whether the student meets the criteria for a disability category under IDEA. Next, the team considers whether the disability significantly impacts the student's educational performance. Finally, the team determines whether the student requires specialized instruction to make progress in school. Eligibility decisions must be based on multiple sources of data and collaborative decision making among educators and parents. From Turnbull, 2020. IEP development and placement. If the student is found eligible for special education services, the next step is to develop an individualized education program, commonly called IEP. The IEP outlines the student's educational goals, specialized instruction, and accommodations or modifications that support learning. The team also determines the most appropriate educational placement for the student. IDEA requires that students with disabilities be educated in the least restrictive environment whenever possible, meaning they should learn alongside peers without disabilities when appropriate supports can be provided. Marks, 2014. Family involvement plays an important role in the special education process. Parents must receive procedural safeguards that explain their rights and protections under federal law. Families must also have access to students' records and be invited to participate in meetings regarding evaluation, eligibility decisions, and IEP development. Research shows that when families are actively involved in the education process, students with disabilities often experience improved academic outcomes and stronger educational support systems. This is from Bernard Brack and Uthenberger, 2010. Although District 300 demonstrates strong alignment with IDEA requirements, several improvements could strengthen the implementation of these systems. First, schools could provide clearer explanations of MTSS and response to intervention so families better understand how early intervention works before special education referral occurs. Second, schools could expand multilingual communication and culturally responsive outreach to ensure that families from diverse backgrounds fully understand evaluation procedures and student rights. Improving communication and transparency would help families participate more effectively in educational decision making. In conclusion, District 300 demonstrates strong alignment with IDEA requirements through its Child Find Procedures, MTSS intervention framework, evaluation process, and IEP development practices. These systems help schools identify students who need additional support and ensure that appropriate educational services are provided. Continuing to strengthen family communication and transparency can further improve equitable access to special education services, supports positive outcome, and students with disabilities. Here are my references. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a great afternoon.